I frowned, shaking my head, more startled at the conversation change than seeing her pink underwear over her voluptuous butt. What are we doing here? Have I died and gone to hell? 2025 feels like hell so far, so it does make sense. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and this is Shelby Reads. We are still bed rotting, but Merry frickin' Christmas, happy holidays, whatever. I don't know. Not feeling it, but it's fine. We talk about LGBT books all year round, mostly sapphic, but this one was a surprise and we'll talk about why. For those of you new to my channel, I am a femme for butch lesbian who came out in the year 2013, terrifying times, and about in a year or so, perhaps, I will be looking for my new butch wife. So, if you know anyone who likes dogs, particularly dogs who are annoying, books and animation, and who isn't avoided, let me know around next November. It would be a great birthday present. Today we're going to be talking about a book called Wilderness Rescue Unthaw My Heart by Harmony Noble, which ends up actually being two authors, which I didn't know. We are going to be doing a couple of holiday romances because if I have to suffer, so do you. Am I jaded this year? Do I believe in love? Who knows? Before we get started, I just wanted to give my usual disclaimers and some trigger warnings. There weren't any trigger warnings on Storygraph, so while I was reading them, I just kind of like compiled some and then I put them on Storygraph because, oh my god. Trigger warnings. Transphobia, homophobia, lesbophobia, death of a parent, mental illness, car accident, outing, panic attack / disorders, suicidal thoughts, toxic relationship, war, sexual assault, religious bigotry, body shaming, transphobic slurs, lesbophobic slurs, medical content, dead naming, misogyny, sexism, and dysphoria. Although there's not that much dysphoria, just so you know. There is a lot of transphobia in this book though. Now we're gonna get onto my disclaimers. Number one, this is not for the author or stans or big fans of these authors' work. My reviews are specifically for readers and have a fun, chit-chatty, tee-hee little joke about a book that I either liked or didn't like. Number two, this review will contain all of the spoilers. If you are interested in reading this book, please click off of this video and come back if you're so inclined. Number three, I'm not bashing LGBTQ books. We deserve amazing books and terrible potato chip-y books, but this is my channel and I can say whatever I want here. Okay. And lastly, I would also like to say I will be making like little snarky comments or fun jokes or whatever, and if you're not into that, please leave. If you're not gonna enjoy it, why do it? I also do have some more positive videos if you're interested in that. I did make a playlist of reading wrap-ups. I know I have like nobody watch them, but I figured maybe someone will want to. Okay, the synopsis is where we start to get into some problems, so we'll just start. Amidst a blizzard, a suicide attempt, an icy car crash, I wouldn't say it was an attempt, but okay, broken chastity vows, an ambulance ride, and coming out to your friends. This isn't your average sweet transgender Christmas romance story. On Christmas Eve, while escaping a toxic relationship, Dr. Michaela is trapped in a blizzard, only to be rescued by Paul, an army mechanic looking to end their life. Their chance encounter in the tundra of Caribou Hills sparks a passionate night, igniting true love despite an upcoming wedding in this queer romance adventure. Wilderness Unthaw My Heart is a thrilling Arctic novella to warm your heart and prove love reigns even navigating deadly conditions. Join them in navigating survival, second chances, trans love, and unthawing their hearts in a remote Caribou Hills cabin in our Arctic sweet romance series, Embrace True Love. Now, I haven't read the other ones. I don't think it's necessary. But then we get to like, there's all of these like tags kind of down here, and the first one is sapphic, and then it says lesbian love story, women loving woman. And on Storygraph, it said that Paul is a trans woman, and that's not true. Paul is a trans man. This is not sapphic. It's not sapphic. Making me read about a man by tricking me. How rude. Again, I probably wouldn't have bought this book if I had known the truth, but I guess now we're diversifying our reading to including men on this channel. Hooray. With that being said, let's get started. So we're in the prologue of Michaela Jackson's POV. We start out 1 year ago on Christmas Eve in Anchorage, Alaska. Michaela is currently in the hospital cafeteria with Bryant, who is her co-worker and boyfriend. He decides to propose to her in the middle of this cafeteria, and it's very corny. Dr. Michaela, my love, I can no longer keep this secret locked away within me. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Will you marry me and make me the happiest man in the world. We learn that they've only been dating for a few months, and he is proposing with her mother's ring. She says what and can't figure out if he talked to her parents, but they must have consented because he has the ring. Her mother apparently loves him, and he attends mass with them at the Catholic church, and her mother really wants grandchildren. Michaela cannot believe that this is real, and she looks around the room to convince herself that all of this is real, and there are all these people she knows, so it must be real. Her friend Jessica, who is a nurse, nudges her and like smiles at her and is like, come on, answer. He also decided to do this when she's exhausted from a hospital shift. Like, it was a very long shift. He just assumes because she starts crying that they're like happy tears and that she's accepting, and he's like, that looks like a yes, we're engaged and everyone's invited to the wedding. Neurotypicals are so presumptuous. Oh my god. Meanwhile, in her head, she's telling herself to say no. He's kissing her lightly and she's thinking, I didn't say yes. And so they pull away and she starts to say, you kind of caught me off guard. He calls her Mac Attack and says she's perfect for him because she's pretty and a doctor and rich and Catholic, and they'll be the hospital's new power couple. She thinks to herself she hates the nickname Mac Attack, which I agree with, it's awful. She is so exhausted from her shift, and she thinks that she does like him, and she's considered marriage, or she wouldn't be dating him to be in the first place, because her next goal is to have a big family, and she thinks engagement is just dating with a promise of marriage, and she tries to convince herself that she wants this. Jess congratulates her on, you know, not only the new job as an ER doctor, but also snagging the most eligible bachelor. I guess I don't know what religious people are really doing and really think about this kind of thing, because I grew up non-religious in New Hampshire, which I'm pretty sure has one of the largest atheist populations in the United States. And here, at least like the people I know, if you said you're going to marry someone and you'd only been dating for a few months, I don't think anyone would be on board for that. I think almost everyone will be like, that's too soon, that's a lot. We get a second prologue chapter with our other character, Pauline Jacobs, on the same day, but he's Paul and he's trans. It's not clear if he's trans in the prologue or not. Like, well, he's trans obviously, but like it's not clear if he knows that about himself and he's out and presenting that way in the prologue. It's not really important. Anyway, he's in Syria's US Army camp also on Christmas Eve 1 year ago. He's a trans man. Again, look at me reading a romance with a man love interest. That's actually not true. I did read a trilogy at the beginning of the year, and I pretended that the love interest that she ended up with was a he him butch so that I could get through it. But to be fair, he had really butch energy, and I stand by that until I'm dead, alright? I stand by that statement. He wakes up to a blaring siren and he is just full of adrenaline. His gut is telling him that something is wrong. So he rushes into the bustling machine shop where he works. When he gets there, nothing is going on right away, and he thinks to himself that his gut lied. Some guy named Officer Curtis asks if he's coming in for his shift early. Paul watches his comrades work on things and is ignoring the constant sirens. While he's looking at all of them, he finally thinks, I finally have a place where I belong, where I fit in. And instead of being judged for being a woman, a lesbian, a gearhead, or someone from a small town, he's just a soldier. I don't think he's out yet at this point, but it's not abundantly clear. And I would just like to give my 2 cents on this, because that's not how that works. You might have some camaraderie with these people where they're ignoring things about you specifically, but that does not mean they accept you. Then there is an explosion that breaks apart the shop. There's smoke, debris clouds, it's clouding his vision, right? And there's agonizing cries all around. He describes the feeling as 1,000 needles pricking his skin, and then he passes out. Chapter 1, Mac. Mac is at a sign that says snow chains required in her car. No snow chains required here. I just make my Toyota Matrix deal with everything. Alright, I don't even use snow tires. There's no rest for the wicked. It's Christmas Eve. There's a bunch of snow, and we are in remote Caribou Hills. Again, still in Alaska. Mac's phone keeps ringing, and it's calls from her now ex-fiance, Bryant. He is trying to convince her not to go to the cabin alone, but she is not listening to him because he is her ex-fiance. She can't get her Jeep up the icy slope, and it starts slipping downhill. She is able to catch herself at first while she's sliding down like a very steep hill and she's able to get her Jeep to stop, but psych, her car slides down until her Jeep suddenly stops in the ditch, obviously. She is panicking a little. She's uninjured, but she knows she can't stay in the Jeep and no one will see her because she is off the road, but her phone has no signal. She doesn't have any snow gear or food or water because she had dropped everything off at the cabin days ago for an annual Christmas Eve holiday. This is her first one without her parents because they both died, and she wanted to enjoy the quiet, read a romance novel, and just have some hot chocolate by herself. Her cabin isn't too far away, so with the snow increasing, she has to leave immediately before like whiteout conditions hit. She prays a little bit beforehand, and then she puts her Santa hat on and zips up her very thin jacket. She thinks to herself, why didn't I make sure that I had winter chains in my Jeep? So the fact that she's in Alaska and she didn't do that, this is literally insane to me. New Hampshire, fine most of the time. Alaska, I think not. The thought of an Alaskan emergency room doctor freezing to death on Christmas Eve in a blizzard is absurd, impossible, and someone discovering me on Christmas, frozen solid in my cheesy Santa hat, makes me want to throw the hat into the woods, but I like my ears, and frostbite is no joke. Girl, you are in Alaska. I don't know if you're from Alaska. This is more like a reading vlog, how I wrote this style. However, I do now know she's from Alaska. But when I didn't, it felt so insane. You don't even have like the local confidence, you know what I mean? But she is from there, so that's probably what did her in. She decides to check her phone signal again, and she has a message from, you guessed it, Bryant, who said, call me back if you need anything and I'll come out there and join you, Mac Attack. She starts having a freak out because her phone doesn't have any signal, and she shouts, I'm stranded. No one can find me, Bryant, and I wouldn't even call you if I had reception. I don't love you. Again, it's probably because I don't want kids, but I don't understand why you were getting engaged to someone you're not in love with. Hot take. She thinks a little bit about how Bryant was disappointed, but her heart is telling her he's not the one. He tried to convince her into staying, and he said like love grows from friendship and that she needs to give them more time, but I just have to agree with her. That's not really how this works for a lot of people. She still feels guilty about this, though I wouldn't feel guilty about breaking some guy's heart who proposed to me after only a couple months of dating, personally. She continues to lament not making the correct choices before coming out into the Alaskan wilderness. It's about to be a very interesting season of Yellow Jackets in this bitch. This is where the book kind of loses me though, because she is from Alaska and she's a doctor, which we learn like right here. Again, this one's going to be closer to a reading vlog because of just how I was writing it while I was reading it. But like, how can you be from Alaska and not take necessary precautions? I say as I just said I raw dog New Hampshire, but still. But I'm still asking for a friend because she's a doctor and she's from here, and this just seems dumb as hell. She tells herself that she's alive and she'll make it to her cabin, but her thoughts spiral towards negativity. While she's walking in this snowstorm, she's wondering why she can't just love her handsome fiance. Well, ex-fiance. She thinks about how he wanted her to stay home and have a new holiday tradition, but she doesn't need a new holiday tradition, and he will not be part of her holiday tradition because they are not going to get married. You know what? Hell yeah. He hasn't moved out yet and he's not accepting the breakup. Kind of in the same situation living wise. But not the whole breakup part, you know? It's expensive. We live in a terrible economy. But these people are doctors, so it's not the same. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe so that I can quit my horrible job and I can live by myself with my 3 wonderful dogs. Pretty please. They haven't officially announced their breakup to their coworkers. She really just wanted to have a nice trip, and she wanted it to be about like getting away from the chaotic hospital schedule, and she wanted some space and time to reflect, which is totally fair. But Bryant had ignored her plans and made her dinner, and he tried to be like, can't you see I'm perfect for you? We're getting married and we work together and your parents approved. You're ruining a perfect relationship. What will people think when you tell people that you're dumping me? But she's a bad bitch, and she decided to flee the house to go to the cabin in Caribou Hills. She doesn't know why she lets his arguments bother her, and she doesn't know why he can't just accept that he'd be better off with anyone else because she can't marry someone she doesn't love. Apparently her parents died like a joint funeral and everything. Are we told how they died? No. And she says that she and Bryant haven't been happy since their funeral, but they weren't really jolly before that either. She thinks that their sudden death made her kind of like reevaluate her life and her happiness, which does make total sense. And she knows that just because he's perfect on paper doesn't mean that he's the right person for her, because he's not her soulmate. She thinks about how their interactions have been tense and resentful. He keeps trying too hard and it's irritating her. It's a cycle of dating, fighting, apologizing, apologizing and dating again. They are functional at work in the ER, but they are not at home. And apparently they have always slept in separate beds because of Catholic values. I just gotta say that while Shelby was writing this, I didn't understand how they were going to do this when it's like a queer romance. Are you going to sleep in separate rooms with another woman is what I thought because of the description, but it's actually a trans man. I guess whatever, I just wasn't expecting it. It's very odd. But she thinks that that's why he was probably rushing the engagement, because he has been waiting almost a year to have sex with her. She yells into the night, which is fair. She curses her decision to run away to this cabin. She thinks she's about 2 miles away and she has to summon the strength to hike there. She thinks to herself that, well, this will be terrible, but she's not hypothermic. Ugh. And she gives herself a pep talk and she will make it to the cabin. At the cabin, I have my winter gear and a ready wood stove, but the looming question is, what if I don't make it? My shaking body and my fast, shallow breath urges me to hurry. Dying is not an option. How can I be in this situation? I should be happy in my perfect relationship with my new job, having a cozy holiday with my family, not freezing to death alone in the dark tundra. I mean, you told us how you got into this situation exactly, so I don't know what's confusing for you. You did this to yourself, girl. Chapter 2, Paul. We start off with Paul on the concrete floor with people surrounding him and looking at him. His mom keeps saying his name. He remembers a distant boom, but everything from there until now is kind of a blur. He apologizes to his mom and he gets up on his feet and he says sorry to the crowd rather sheepishly. He thinks that the booming of the fireworks must have triggered him. He tries to regain control of his racing heart and takes slow measured breath like he has tried in therapy. I wish that worked for me. The only thing that works for me is humming. I can't always be humming. What exactly am I meant to be doing? The crowd disperses to get some of his mom's eggnog. I really want some oat nog now. Maybe I'll get some at some point, but I'm going to Florida, so maybe when I come back. I'm a lesbian and I prefer non-dairy beverages, thank you. His mom wears some kind of pin to symbolize her support and understanding for Paul's PTSD. His dad, who is a military man, is engaging the neighbors in a lot of conversation to try and distract from Paul's breakdown. Paul thinks that his dad's silent support speaks volumes. While Paul is doing his deep breathing, a child asks, "Why is your daughter a guy?" to Paul's mom. Paul thinks to himself that the kid is only asking what everyone is thinking. My mom kneels to the child's level and explains, "Oh, sweetie, Paul is like a superhero who's about to put on his cape to become the hero he truly is. You know how superheroes have secret identities and don't show their true selves at first? A trans man is like that. Paul's a superhero who knows deep inside that he's a boy, even though he was assigned a different gender at birth. Superheroes know, but the world doesn't always recognize them." The child nods. Like Wonder Woman. This wasn't like the worst possible explanation I've ever seen, but it depends on the age of the child. So I don't know. And I wrote after this, although if Paul, the main character, is a trans man, I don't know how the marrying with Catholicism is going to work. He feels pretty uncomfortable about this entire interaction. Fair. He said he's gonna haul a sled over to Taylor's with the propane because his parents deliver some of that because he needs an escape from this party. I hate parties, so I get it. Although I do want to have my own Halloween housewarming party someday. I don't know. But my friends aren't annoying, so he works for his parents' propane and truck repair service or something. Page break. He is going through the trees on a snowmobile. Fun story, when my dad used to take me out on the snowmobile, I would kind of pretend that we were fleeing from the Jurassic Park dinosaurs because I've always been obsessed with Jurassic Park. I am still a Jurassic Park stan, thank you. Even if I'm really mad about the Jurassic World movies. But they should definitely hire me to fix some things for them is all I'm saying. I could fix some stuff. Paul thinks about how his parents gave him this job. He helps deliver, but he also fixes engines. And it's because they were concerned about the grim statistics of returning soldiers and their battles with mental health. And they also want to keep a close eye on him, and he thinks that they're right to worry. His return to being a civilian in his hometown has been very difficult, and he's dealing with PTSD, and his therapist says he has survivor's guilt going on. He thinks that before his military service he didn't fit the mold, not even as a tomboy. He wasn't interested in sports, and he had no interest in boys that were trying to pursue him when he was presenting as a girl. So he found solace in mechanical pursuits. When he was in the military, it became his kind of refuge, and he felt that his gender didn't matter. So quick break for a second. I need to know if this was actually written by someone who was in the military, because gender roles do absolutely matter in the military. Like, if you look at the statistics of sexual assault on women in the military and people who are perceived as women, like assigned female at birth in the military, it's literally insane. And at this time, as far as I can tell, that Paul was identifying as a woman. So it's really crazy to me that you're trying to tell me gender doesn't matter. I truly don't believe that, okay? Little Shelby rant over. Okay, actually, little Shelby rant not over. I decided to look up the author at this point when I was reading, and it's a duo author, and there is nothing about military experience anywhere. And I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say they didn't really research the military, because like, the military for women is not a good place to be. Paul thinks that when he was in the army, he was the only woman in the diesel shop, but he was a vital cog in a well-oiled machine. Fast forward 6 months and the army has bid him a farewell, like an early one, thanks to a concussion, migraines, and dizziness, and the doctors labeled the lingering symptoms as PTSD. After he was discharged, he attempted the 4-hour drive from home, to Anchorage to get his prescribed treatment. But even in his childhood home, even though it's quiet, sleep is still elusive, he has had to cancel many therapy appointments. And he's still just haunted by the relentless memories of the men, the sirens, the explosion. He thinks that even though he's a local, that doesn't mean he's not still being treated like an outsider. They call him the D-slur on a bike. So yay, blatant homophobia in the morning. He thinks that he just lets their words slide off him, and that he has found his niche doing trucks, and that doing that doesn't demand much human interaction, which suits him. He thinks about how his parents have this mantra about how, like, being in villages and being part of a community where everyone knows each other, you know, but that living remotely also means like limited access to regular therapy and medical care, and it makes it also hard to get restful sleep. He thinks he's being kind of reckless to go out in the snowstorm, and wonders if he just vanishes tonight, would it cast like a permanent shadow over his parents' Christmas Eve, which is very dark. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you probably should have thought of that before you ran off in the middle of a snowstorm. This has been your lifelong New Hampshire girl announcement to the general public. Stop fucking around in snowstorms, you can die. You're welcome. He then thinks about how it would be easier to just disappear into these unforgiving landscapes and let the cold and isolation claim him, which would spare his loved ones from having to support him. Yikes, but I have been there more often than I would like, to be quite honest. But I also have PTSD, so we're basically twinsies, he and I. Hoo-hoo. He can see something up in the distance, and he kind of tenses up a bit because he thinks that it might be a moose, but then he gets close enough and it's a person. And it's our girl Mac wearing her freaking Santa hat, and she collapses to the side of the trail. Paul thinks shit, and he stops near her and yells over the engine, but she's barely moving. She is able to push herself up and toward him. He says, "Hold on, let me help you." He lifts her limp body into his arms. He carries her to his snowmobile. He has a lot of questions going on in his mind about why she would even be here, but he knows that he has to get her somewhere safe and warm before the blizzard gets any worse. She clings to him. He gets all blushy. He asks what she's doing out here. She tells him about crashing her car, and she sounds like really out of energy. I just want to say it's only 2 miles. Can't walk or jog 2 miles? You're an ER doctor. You're on your feet all day.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
But we're going to push past that in the name of love, apparently. He does a quick check on what makes sense to do next, you know, and he decides that her cabin makes the most sense. And he asks her where it is. She gives him directions, even though it's not on his delivery list. He knows a cabin with an orange door. He hopes it has a wood stove and some people who can help. I wouldn't get my hopes up if I were you, dude. He hopes she has dry wood and some hot coffee because soon there will be power outages. I do love a good old forced proximity, I can't lie. He tells her that he's going to take her to the cabin first, and then they can figure out what to do about her Jeep. Luckily for her, he has medic training from the army. Not that she needs it because she's literally an ER doctor, but he doesn't know that yet. While they're making their way through the snow, he thinks about how it's been forever since he's touched another person.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I don't even like this when like women think this kind of stuff. Like, why would I like it when a man does it? When he has like instant physical connection and emotional connection just from touching someone. I'm not about that. He sneaks a glance at her and he has the chance to save this beautiful Latina woman. Except he says Latino, so it's Latina. Get it right. Also, why are we bringing her ethnicity into this for no reason? That makes me feel icky. It feels weird and fetishizing. I don't like it. But he's found connection and purpose. If you say so, weirdo. Men really cling on to anything, I guess. They make it to the cabin, hooray. He sees that the cabin is dark and uninhabited and thinks there is no help for Miles and he needs to work fast. Chapter 3, Mac. We have to go back in time for some reason to get Mac's side of things of him rescuing her. I hate when books do this. My heart races a wild drumbeat against the backdrop of the blizzard's fury, each snowflake emphasizing my desperate situation. However, God has an odd sense of humor, and as I'm contemplating a future as an Alaskan popsicle, a rescuer on a snowmobile appears from the icy darkness of the storm. Why are you trying to be a little quirky when you're dying? Just want to know. I am going to skip over all the stuff we just went over. I'll give you the highlights, okay? She thinks that their connection is fiery hot. Those are her exact words. She imagines this as a sweet Hallmark movie. You can't be dying that much if you're daydreaming all of this for some reason. Okay. She's ready to let go of Bryant and their toxic relationship for good. Girl, you were already ready to do that. What are we talking about?
What the hell are you talking about?
They're at the cabin now. She's trying to assess her current physical state and she's worried she's closer to the hypothermia than she thought. He helps her move and she thinks about his strength and experience and she wonders if he works in healthcare. They stumble to the cabin. She wonders why she locked it because it's in the middle of nowhere. And she's trying to get the keys out of her pocket and she manages to get them through sheer will. Is that will powered by hormones? Let me know. He helps her the whole time. Something about his aroma sends butterflies around her stomach. Oh. The book then takes time to describe her cabin. I understand the urge as writers, but we have more pressing things going on right now. Couldn't we have done this in like Paul's chapter when Mac is asleep or something, you know? Like, she thinks about how romantic this is again, and I'm worried about our priorities here. He places her on the couch, then goes to tend to the wood stove. She thinks that his quick actions mean she will survive. She's getting feeling back in her body. While this is happening, she's thinking about how handsome he is. He ignites the fire in the wood stove and the dancing orange light washes over the room, dispelling the darkness, masking his face. His features are sharp but soft in a ruggedly handsome way, with high cheekbones, intense brown eyes with long lashes, glowing rosy cheeks, and a long, lean neck. Holy Mother of all rescuing saints. I move my hand to my medallion, reminding myself I just thanked and promised to follow God's plan minutes ago, and God rescued me from the storm and brought me together with this striking, strong person for a reason. Before me stands a stunning woman. Ugh, why? Just why? She then has her whole I'm a cheerleader moment thinking about how she didn't love Bryant because she's into women, even if this is just a hallucination and God knows about it. She's died and gone to heaven. Thank you, God. I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with any of this. By the way, there's a lot of misgendering in this book, just so you know. Chapter 4, Mac. Still stuck with her. She wakes up on the couch. She can hear her rescuer cursing. We have to suffer through so much more misgendering. Hooray. Mac wonders who Paul is and why he's out on Christmas Eve in a storm. I mean, you were out here too, dumbass. At least he was on a snowmobile in snow gear. Idiot. Mac hears Paul checking the landline and saying that there's no service and no dial tone on like either the cell phone or the landline because the storm knocked everything out. Now, I live with a lot of snow, but I'm lucky I live right across the street from the fire station, so if the power is out, it'll never be for long. Although I guess if I move, I should get some kind of backup power. That's for future Shelby to worry about. Mac thinks that they're screwed if she doesn't warm up quickly. Paul asks if she's okay, if she's injured, and Mac just feels the gratitude swelling inside of her. It better be swirling in there. He saved your life, weirdo. Paul asks if she has any wool blankets, and Mac says yes. He gets the blankets. Mac thinks that he's hot, confident, and dangerously attractive. I guess the main character is bi, because again, she thinks that Paul's a woman right now. And again, I know some trans men still ID as butches/butch lesbians, but not many authors actually write about them, to be honest. So I'm not talking about y'all, and I don't think these authors are talking about y'all either. He puts the blankets on her. Her heart flutters. I know we only have 182 pages, but I don't think we always need to do Insta-love/Insta attraction, okay? I don't think we need to do that. Paul introduces himself and comes out as trans immediately and says his pronouns. I have to say, though, as someone who lives in the south of the north, you probably shouldn't just say that to random people. It's not safe, and I feel like Alaska is even worse than New Hampshire, so like, be careful. Mac introduces herself back without saying all of the same stuff, like pronouns and whatever. Not very girly pop ally of you. Paul immediately starts dumping on why he was there, how he used to be in the army, and why he's wired to deal with like any scenario. Mac just stays quiet. He then says he wasn't planning on heading home because he's a mess and useless outside of the military. He's a drag on his folks.
I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents. And I'm frightened.
It's very sad. He goes to the door and takes off his boots and overalls. Mac can see his physique and it makes her heart race. My gaze lingers on him and my heart races. His strength and beauty captivate me. And though I see despondent patients in the emergency room, I cannot fathom why he'd consider such a desperate act. You're an ER doctor. It actually turns out she's also a psychiatrist, by the way. You don't know why people want to die. Maybe you shouldn't work there. Okay. She thanks him for helping her. He just starts trauma dumping on her about seeing things no one should ever have to see in a war zone. Sir, this is a lot of information. She whispers PTSD out loud. As someone who has PTSD, that's rude. Shut up. Paul says, I'll keep talking, you stay awake. I feel like you can keep people awake without trauma dumping, but okay. She says deal. He continues saying it's a daily battle, but you ruined my plan, because he just couldn't let her freeze. I mean, you could have.
I should have left you on that street corner where you were standing. But you didn't.
She says she's glad that he found her and thanks him for warming her up and talking to her, and that he's braver and stronger than he realizes. He says he's not strong enough because he couldn't save his platoon or stay in the army or even watch fireworks without freaking out. Dude, I used to hide under the covers when I heard people going up and down the stairs in my apartment. Your nervous system doesn't necessarily understand that real threats and perceived threats are different when you have PTSD. It's okay. Also, it's only been 1 year. Calm down. He sits with her. She continues to check him out. I don't know what's sexy about suicidal ideation, but okay. She has never been this attracted to someone before. She thinks about sharing the recent loss of her parents, but she doesn't right away. But inside, she wants him to know that there is room for change even after horrible events. She also thinks that being in the cabin with Paul makes her holiday sadness lighter. You just met him, get a hold of yourself. She also thanks God for bringing him into her life to offer a connection to the world. Don't blame God for this mess. He asks her what she needs and she thinks you. Instead, she says, thank you, I'm okay now. He says that she's still cold and he has to defrost her. He has the kettle on for tea to help. She asks him not to leave and holds his hand. We're a little presumptuous, I see. It's okay though, because he's going to hold her to warm her up if that's okay with her. She nods because she's horny. So now they're cuddling. She thanks him for sharing his story. I wouldn't be thanking him for that, but I'm built different. He says he wanted her to understand why he was out there tonight, and if she doesn't live, he's just gonna dip. That is a lot of pressure. She says, sorry, I'm going to live. I can't let my rescuer go back out into the blizzard. And then she snuggles him some more. He tells her she's beautiful. I hate Insta-love/Insta attraction. Why can't we have anything in this house? She says it back, but she worries if she insulted him because he's a rugged Alaskan trans man. Yeah, you might have wanted to think before you said like specific words that we typically associate with gendered language, right? He gets up and gets the kettle because it's done. He grabs mugs, honey, and tea. He asks if she's warming up. She says she thinks so, but she still feels frozen. We all know she just wants to cuddle though. He says the tea will help warm her up. Get wrecked. He sits with her after bringing the tea. She says she's still feeling a bit cold. He says that he will keep her close just to raise her temperature and tells her to keep drinking the tea. And then they're back to cuddling. I'm not against cuddling, but it is a bit boring to read about for so long. It felt like forever. Even if Mac is insanely horny, it's still kind of boring. She thinks about how she's never felt anything like this for her ex. We know. And then feeling so horny, she's basically gonna explode. She kisses him. He's like, well, we need to talk. And then she just ignores him. So that is assault straight up. Just because he ends up being into it doesn't mean it's not assault. Okay. She thinks there's no room for Catholic shame or guilt because of the connection. I didn't know it was that easy to get out of. Quick, I'll tell Harrowhark Nona Gessimus and let her know you can just stop religious guilt and shame with connection. They make out for a while. She asks if he still wants to go slow, but his pupils dilate, so that must mean he's into it. Okay. Chapter 5, Paul. He's studying her. He liked the kissing, but I didn't like the very blatant ignoring of the word stop, so here we are. He thinks that she's not playing fair, and he doesn't want to take advantage of a woman he just rescued. That's nice of you, but she doesn't seem to have the same common courtesy guy. She touches his chest, but he's wearing a binder. But he wants to show her everything tonight. You're comfortable with a woman you just met who was randomly in the woods, seeing all the goods. Okay. They start kissing again, and she unwinds his binder and she kisses his scars. Yay. Mac tells him that she wants him. He says that he should remove her wet clothes. She didn't already think of that? She's a doctor. He suddenly wonders if she's with anyone because she has a engagement ring on. I mean, you could ask, but apparently we're all busy being avoidant, so whatever. They have sex. Thankfully, we don't have to see any of it. Thank God. The chapter ends with him thinking that he wouldn't go back out into the storm. Yay. Chapter 6, Paul. Paul wakes up to Mac's frozen feet on his leg. This is just girly things you wouldn't understand. He checks to make sure her feet aren't frostbitten. They're not. They're just cold. He wants to kiss her toes. Immediately no. No thanks. I get that feet are for some people. I don't want to kink shame, but it's not for me. No, thank you. He thinks it's hard to be mad at such a lovely woman. I mean, you don't know anything about her. She could be a serial killer, but okay. He feels this unexpected connection with her. Again, Insta-love keeps us all losing. It's ruining the book community, and I will die on that hill. Paul tries to ask why she's here on Christmas and not with her fiance. And she's like, what did you ask? And he changes the question to say, why aren't you with your family for Christmas? She says she doesn't have a family anymore. I guess we're all sharing our deep-seated traumas right now. He thinks about how he spent too much time with ghosts too. He thanks her for giving him a reason to live. They start cuddling again. He starts internally freaking out about if she cares about him and if they have a future together. It hasn't even been 24 hours. Real people aren't like this. Well, I mean, I hope they're not. Reminds me of when I was on the dating apps back in like 2012, like late 2012, and one girl told me that she wanted to go backpacking through Europe with me, and that's the first thing she ever said to me. A lawless land. He does some breathing exercises from his counselor, and he decides that tomorrow he will ask about the ring, and they go to sleep. Chapter 7, Mac. She wakes up. Paul is still sleeping. She gets up toward the stove, and she thinks about how great last night was, and then she holds her St. Michael medallion. Her dad had a similar one when he was in the military. I just gotta ask, would your dad and the saints be cool with this? I know that Catherine of Aragon would not support this, and yes, she's a saint. God, I love her though. She then thinks about last night's events. They were not within Catholic teaching, right? But last night just reinforced that she's not staying with Bryant. And she wonders how the staff at her work will feel about her unorthodox relationship. I mean, you don't have to tell them that he's trans. Hope that helps. But her work is at a Catholic hospital, and she worries about losing her job. Just go to a different hospital. There is a doctor shortage, girl. She decides to get rid of some stress by tidying. She's gathering up discarded clothes, and an EpiPen falls out of Paul's jacket, and it makes a noise And she goes, oh no, chapter 8, Paul. Paul wakes up because of PTSD. I don't have that problem. Once I'm sleeping, I'm usually asleep, but I just had that good old-fashioned childhood abuse, not war flashbacks. So Mac comes over and puts her hand on his shoulder and tells him he's safe, and she has him breathe with her, and his heart slows because PTSD is cured by like a pretty girl telling you to breathe and having sex with her before that, obviously. He says Merry Christmas, she says it back. He feels a bit better because he hasn't had good sleep in weeks. She asks him what the EpiPen is for, and she tells him that she works in the ER with mental wellness. Well, now I'm extra worried about you being a doctor in a Catholic hospital. Next thing you know, this whole thing is going to look like American Horror Story Asylum. He's surprised that she's a doctor, but it makes sense. I don't think it does. I don't think it makes any sense at all, dude. He is definitely allergic to lavender and ginger, and a few things he's like mildly allergic to also, but his worst allergy is to Benadryl. I just have to say, if I suddenly became allergic to lavender and ginger, I would end it. That would be my 13th reason. I put lavender in my coffee and tea and ginger in so many recipes. Nope, I would not stick around. Not me. I'm already too picky about food. He thinks that she's like a truth serum. I think you're just lonely. She says, really? He says his parents don't have any allergies, but he's just unlucky. He had to do a ton of allergy journaling and his mom helped him with it. Max says she doesn't want him to have an emergency out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, that would be bad, especially considering you're apparently a pretty useless doctor. You'll see through the rest of the book, okay? It's not just this. They're back to snuggling. When will my torment end? When I was reading this, I wanted to tap out, but whatever. She gets up to whip up some toast. In her words, you just put the bread in the toaster. What do you mean whip it up? He decides he's not going to ask about the ring, which is kind of crazy. Commit to the Insta-love or don't. She kisses his hand. He says that he could eat. She says she has an idea for a rural veteran support group. I think I know where this is going. I frown, shaking my head, more startled at the conversation change than seeing her pink underwear over her voluptuous butt. What are we doing here? Have I died and gone to hell? 2025 feels like hell so far, so it does make sense. He asks if she wants him in therapy. He wonders if she only sees him as a broken soldier or as her lover.
Both is good.
She says, no, I mean, yes, like when you're ready, and that she needs to turn off her professional brain. She says that he's a friend and she wants him to be happy. Then she gets going to make breakfast, her famous breakfast sandwich and coffee apparently. But he's upset about the word friend. You just met and you have not asked her any questions. What is she supposed to call you? Also, you're not even friends, you're acquaintances like at best. So she tells him that this sandwich is bacon, banana, peanut butter, and honey on sourdough. That sounds gross to me, I can't lie. But I'm so picky about food, just ignore me. She says that he'll love it. He thinks he's already found something he loves, and it's not the food.
Okay, I'm recommending a 24-hour cooling off period.
She says she only has comfort food here, but if she was dying or on death row, she'd pick this as her last meal. She asks what his last meal would be, and he's just staring at her ass. All men are the same, I swear. He would pick pulled pork with Frito pie and sweet tea. That feels like very southern and I can't explain it. He's worried about her not mentioning their future or the ring, and he asks if she's ready to head out soon. She says sure, she has to work in the evening. You just went to this cabin in the middle of nowhere for one night. That's crazy. They start eating. He likes the freaking sandwich. He says he'll drop her off at the gas station and that Jim will help her get her a tow or a ride to Anchorage, but he wishes that she would ask him to drive her. He tells her that he needs to tell his parents that he's okay, and she says thank you for rescuing me again. How many times are we going to say the same things? But she hugs him. He says he's going to warm up the snowmobile and he'll see her out there. He thinks that if he doesn't leave her now that he'll never leave, and that he's just a head case to her. Broken. Have we forgotten about basic communication skills in books now? Do adults not have to use their words anymore? Apparently not. Chapter 9, Mac. Mac is back at work, being called by Nurse Jess, her friend, Mac has been daydreaming and looking at the morality clause for her job. And she also looked for PTSD counselors in Ninilchik, which is where he's from, and there are none. She also tries to find Paul's socials, but he doesn't have any. Yeah, you should have asked for his number. What were you thinking? But she's pulled back into work where it's crazy. She can't stop thinking about her night with Paul. And her heart doesn't care if he's a choice that meshes with her work's old-fashioned culture. I'm gonna get on my high horse for a second, okay? You were fine with working with a bunch of bigots until it affected you. That makes me think that you're a shitty and selfish person. I want to say that sometimes you don't have a choice. I understand that, but she is a medical doctor. She's a psychiatrist, okay? She has options, and much better options than what the rest of us have. I don't want to hear it. She feels guilty about using her work to escape from Paul and talking about the sex. You don't owe him anything, so I don't see how it matters. Jessica reminds her that she wanted a pen. Mac forgot, so she just gives Jessica her pen. I swear, if I didn't know you, I'd say you were Twitter-pated, she teases, widening her blue eyes and waiting for my response. So I learned a new word. That's all I'm gonna give this book. But I also want to point out that I've never heard anyone use that word in my entire life. They start teasing each other. I'll just read it to you. It's annoying. I respond with a sheepish smile, attempting to suppress my thoughts. No, I'm tired of doing both our work while you dance around to Christmas carols, I quip, smiling. Really? I saw your butt swing along too, Beyonce. She raises a perfectly arched eyebrow and pouts her glossy red lips at me. I shake my head and grin. Whatever, Shakira.
Walk out the door, you see someone that you know and they ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand. She admits to Jess that she is thinking about her future and someone special. She's very careful about her word choices because she doesn't want to reveal her broken engagement. And while Jess is open-minded, Mac thinks to herself that it's not conventional again and it's not expected of her, like from her. She's never indulged in a one-night stand with a person like Paul. I can't really explain this to you, but it feels weirdly fetishizing, and if I'm able to put my finger on it at any point, I will let you know, okay? Jess says it's obvious and she's oozing sexual energy. Mac tells her to stop and her eyes are darting around. She's worried about the Catholic gossip. My ex's family is Catholic and I swear her grandma only goes to mass for the gossip. And that's relatable. Jess says she's not a nun. She asks where her new workplace romance is type thing or whatever. Max says, you know I don't discuss my personal life at work. Let's talk after the shift because she's boring. Gossiping's great. But Jess is covering doubles until next week. Mac thinks that this gives her a week to sort through her feelings and talk to Bryant, and then she can be public with her breakup and he better get out of her house. Jess asks where she went again because she's daydreaming. She decides to tell Jess a little something. Mistake of the century. It ends up not being, but my brain was like, don't do it. But she says that she thinks she found the sweet Hallmark romance she always wanted. Jess is very happy about this and she hypes her up because friends only exist to hype people up, particularly the main characters. It is book law, I guess. But Jess still thinks she's talking about Bryant, which is interesting. She tells Jess thanks and that she appreciates her, but she's worried about the daunting dilemma of redefining her sexuality and when she'll see Paul again. She's worried about revealing she's with Paul because she's already a Latina woman, which is fair. She's a minority at this hospital and she's worried that they'll see her as a sinner, and she wonders if it's worth being fired just to date Paul. But this was her dream before Paul, so she's not so sure. Chapter 10, Mac. Jess tells her that they need to talk, interrupting her doing her real job. Jess tells her that there are rumors in the respiratory department saying the wedding is off. Mac asks who's spreading the rumor. She wonders if it's a coincidence that the rumor started from Bryant's department, but maybe he's finally accepting and telling people. Jess asks if it's true and Mac admits that it's true. Jess says, but you're perfect together. And she tells Jess like it just wasn't right and that they don't love each other. Jess asks if she's serious and Mac says the reason why they're not getting married is very complicated. Jess makes guesses, cheating and pregnancy. Mac says, I'm not sure I should be saying anything. I need to talk to Bryant. And Jess says, you know you can trust me. Mac says that she knows, but it's hard to explain and she really needs to talk to Bryant first. I don't think she does, but okay. And she says it's more than just the wedding. It could affect her job. And Jess is like, what do you mean by that? So Mac confesses that she was saved by a stranger who was also in a desperate situation and God threw them together. Stop blaming him. It's not his fault. Jess says that's incredible, who is this new guy? And Jess just does warn her about continuing to live with Bryant while they're not even engaged anymore. Mac says that she knows, but they were supposed to have a nice breakup after the holidays. She says she doesn't know what to do about the rumor that she might lose her job because of the morality clause. Jess is just a puppet to talk to and to get the exact feedback that you want though. So she says you have to do what's best for you and they won't fire you, but adds that they only fired one guy for the morality clause because he was gay. Well, if it's only that, no worries here. Phew. Mac can't figure out how to tell Jess that her soulmate is a trans guy, and she wonders if Jess will still be her friend. But before we can go and talk to Bryant, the overhead speaker says code blue and the room number. I was guessing that this might be Paul. Not yet though, but I was right, okay? I was right. Chapter 11, Paul. Paul is with his dad, and he is working on a truck. Paul tells his dad that he's been doing some serious thinking, and he can't help but feel like he's missing something deeper in his life. He touches the Santa hat he stole from Mac in his pocket like a little thief. Dad says, go on, I'm all ears. Paul says it's not that he's unhappy here with his parents, but he's aimless. He has this feeling that he should be dead, not alive, but there's something more. He's worried he's not describing this well, and I would also agree. His dad says, I get it, son, we're proud of you, and it takes a lot to come home from war. It takes some time, you know. Paul said he's been doing some soul searching and trying to figure out what's missing. We all know what he's missing is some woman he barely knows. His dad says, I want to show you something, and he shows him a medal from his dead friend. He talks about how his friend was better than him, but he's not here anymore, and that he strives to be the friend and the man that his friend saw him as. And he hands it to Paul. It has St. George on it because this Catholic shit has to infiltrate everything, apparently. Though I am fucking with the Catholic Church slightly more because of what they're doing in Chicago against ICE, but they've still got a lot of work to do. Get it together, Catholics. You have like the aesthetic vibes. Just get it together. Paul gets a little teary and says, thanks, Pop. His dad says that Caribou Hills is a special place and that he was a mess until he met an old friend who understood after coming back from war. Paul asks what he's on about. His dad says sometimes the connection we seek isn't what we expect. Have the courage to let go of the past. You aren't alone, etc. Paul says he can't take the medallion. His dad says, yes, you can. Remember me and your mom always have your back. You're not alone. You deserve to live. Paul tells his dad that he'll cherish it. Then Paul starts spilling about meeting Mac, and he's terrified of the connection that he feels with her. But his dad isn't super helpful, saying, you'll find your way. Remember, you're not alone. This man is a broken record. Then he says, maybe one day you'll have a wonderful kid just like I did. Maybe it's because I'm forced to be around kids all of the time and it's very much against my will. It's for money. This feels like a threat or like a witch's curse. Paul says, oh, Pops, don't ruin it. We then move to his mom taking the ham out of the oven. Paul says he was about to take a break. Perfect timing. His dad asks how Bob's truck is coming along, but I don't care. Good, that's all you need to know. Paul thanks his dad for talking and working here with him. His dad says, I know that you had your sights on leaving this small town, but it grows on you, right? And as someone who has lived in multiple small New Hampshire towns, like, it does not in fact fucking grow on you, just so you know. But Paul agrees and nods. His dad just keeps going on how it's not so bad here. Paul thinks his mom must have put him up to getting him to stay here. He doesn't want her to get her hopes up, but he also has nowhere to go. His thoughts drift back to Mac and her body because of course his thoughts go back there. Of course. He thinks that home with her is impossible because the only good things in town are his parents and the garage. Damn, not even the Caribou are good. Watch out, they'll rob you. His mom comes to get them to eat Christmas dinner. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot that it was Christmas now. Why are you working on someone's truck on Christmas? I'm working on Christmas this year, but it actually makes sense with my terrible job. Like, comment, subscribe so I can quit. They go inside. His mom starts harassing him about gaining some weight and that he needs to eat 2 kinds of pie. Gotta love unsolicited comments about people's bodies. But Paul says fine, he just surrenders. His dad teases him and asks if he can even recall the last decent meal he ate, and he tells them about the Elvis sandwich. I'm not going over this again. They think it sounds weird. He says, you'll love it. His mom teases him and says she's pleased that he wants to cook and she'll eat anything that he makes. And she says he seems different and happier since the blizzard rescue. He didn't give them the full story, thank God. His parents tried to do the whole thing, not that you were unhappy, we just want what's best for you. Ma'am, your son was going to purposely die in the blizzard. I wouldn't call that happy. Okay. He says he knows. His mom says he's a greasy mess. He says he'll wash up while she sets the table, and Paul thinks about trying to smile more if it would make his mom happier. He thinks about running into Mac again though, because everything is about romance apparently. He washes himself and he starts to think he's having like a flashback, but his heart races and he's getting dizzy and he's worried it might be a heart attack. His dad asks if he's all right and like hurries toward him, but Paul tries to answer, but he can only wheeze. He realizes he's having an allergic reaction, but his EpiPen is in his bedroom. He is having a hard time standing up. He hears his dad telling his mom to call 911. His mom tells his dad to find his EpiPen. Paul tries to focus on what his dad telling him he's all right, but he collapses and hits his head on the concrete floor with a loud thwack, and his last thought is, lucky for me, I've got a skull as thick as a bunker door. Sir, this is factually inaccurate. Give me a second. I'm going to call my friend Harold Hark back and she'll tell you exactly how thick skulls are supposed to be. Okay. Chapter 12, Mac. Mac gets to room 14. It's chaos. Bryant is there. He's a respiratory therapist. Dr. Anderson, the ER doctor in charge, is there. He ignores all the women in the room because he's a sexist, apparently. We hear how Bryant is essential and charismatic. I think we have some more important things going on right now, girl. But Mac wishes she had a sliver of love or desire for this modern day Don Juan. Me too. Then Paul and I wouldn't have to deal with you. He asks for an extra towel, which she does give. He winks at her, which is weird. I hate winking. I've decided it's been too many winking in all of these books. She wonders if he knows about the rumors and how she can get him alone. Ma'am, this is an ER. Imagine you're dying and one of the doctors is preoccupied with her stupid engagement ending. She thinks he must not have heard because he wouldn't have winked at her if he knew about the rumors. I'm not sure if that's true. She starts thinking while she's just watching him work that she's going to have to kick him out this time, and it like has to be real. She sees a nursing student checking him out and she's wondering why he can't move on with an adoring woman, and she describes him looking like Henry Cavill. So peeps who like men, is Henry Cavill hot? Because I'm like not convinced. Meanwhile, by the way, the patient is seizing. They fix it though, and they all high five, but Mac didn't do anything, so I don't know why we're high fiving her. Mac needs to get back to her charting, but Bryant is here to bother her instead. He says, I thought you'd call and at least say Merry Christmas. Why should she? You're a man who won't listen. She says she was busy because there are other people around them. He smiles at her and gives her a mini candy cane. She wishes he would be an asshole so she can feel better about the breakup. He is being an asshole. He doesn't respect anything you say. Men are a disease. Get well soon. She says the phone works both ways, which is true, but then she remembers he did call her and she thinks she's a jerk and he's the good guy. I mean, he doesn't respect women, so again, is he the good guy? She tells herself that there are only a few more hours and then they can discuss the situation together. But he's now ignoring the nurse's flirting and he follows her and he says, I've been thinking about us. But he's also like giving candy to a nursing student as he's passing by, and then he grabs Mac's hand to keep her from escaping. Gross. She says, we've been over this. You're better off apart. You can literally have any nurse here. You promised you would move out over the holidays and that we would talk to HR together about it. His smile fades and he says she's not giving him a chance. That's right, because she doesn't have to. He says they've been together too long to break up suddenly and asks for another shot. He brings up being on the being put on the mortgage and other bills because she was about to start doing that, and she can take care of the household and the kids. He is in Delulu land. She feels bad for him though and thinks she should have called him. Nah. Ghost him, change the locks while he's out, buy a gun. She says no more firmly, but she wishes that Jessica was around to help her, help rescue her. He says, you tell patients to be open-minded in new therapies, and I don't see what that has to do with anything. What does that have to do with anything she's saying to you? You're saying to be open, I guess, to I don't know, dating you again? Why should she do that? Anyway, she feels really guilty, but she's sticking to her decision, and he tries some more, telling her to remember the good times that we've had and all our plans. She says the past is the past and we both changed and it's time to move on. He says he loves her and he asks for a chance again, and she says love isn't enough. We need more than history to make this work. It's time we both find happiness somewhere else. Now I wish I had a butch to rescue me so I don't have to go on the dating apps. Must be nice for her to have a trans man who she's attracted to save her. Not bitter at all. She tries to keep arguing, but she turns away from him. She's determined to maintain civility facility, I think that's a stupid decision. He says she'll never find a guy who's willing to be in a relationship with all of her baggage, and I can have any woman I want. You're making a big mistake.
Big mistake. Big. Huge. I have to go shopping now.
This is spoken truly like a man who can't get women, full stop. She tells him he's right and that he's always right, and he gets excited because he thinks that his mansplaining worked, which is the word she used. She continues to say, I won't find another guy like you because I don't want to be with you. I'm in love with someone else. It's crazy to say this when you don't know what Paul's favorite color is. What if he likes eating raw eggs like 3 times a day? Who are you talking to? Like, she takes the ring off and slides it into her pocket because it was her mother's. She thinks that she's done trying to save her job and making him look good. He clenches his fists and gets fired up. He says he'll tell HR he's unwilling to work with her and she'll get fired, and he'll tell everyone she's a cheating slut. He says, you will give me another chance or else. And he hasn't wasted a year of his life for nothing. Dude, it was 1 year. Try 13 and then get back to me. The intercom stops this interaction. It's another code blue. He transforms into a good doctor in the blink of an eye, and men are so weird to me. They start heading to the newest crisis. Chapter 13, Mac. She's done charting for the day, but this time it's a radio crackling and it's the EMTs calling for a helicopter. She thinks she should have known better than to work on Christmas. I don't really think you get much of a say, first of all. The EMTs misgender the patient, who is obviously Paul. Mac thinks, Paul is 25 and from Ninilchik. She thinks this is a coincidence, but what if it's Paul? She prays to God that it isn't Paul. She thinks she can't handle seeing him because it wasn't some illicit affair. Just gotta let you know that Catholicism frowns upon all premarital sex, girl, but especially this kind, okay? She thinks the hospital doesn't need to know. True, you don't have to be out to anyone, and neither does Paul. The door slams open and the EMTs are pushing the patient in. She sees her Santa hat and it's Paul. She starts getting teary and starts praying to Saint Michael. I think Catholicism is a bit funny for this, praying to the saints because God is too busy. He's God, but he can't even have an answering machine. That's so funny to me. She's checking him out even though he is actively dying. She cannot stop her emotional response and she rushes to Paul, but the EMTs are good at their jobs and keep taking him on his way because duh, he's in anaphylaxis. She stops moving in the hallway and she thinks about how she can't embrace Paul in a room full of her colleagues. You just said you were done caring about this job. Make up your damn mind. Instead of comforting him, she goes into the room and Jessica is in there, the nurse, taking charge. She asks if Mac knows him, but Mac can't answer, but Jess nods because this bitch is crying and it's obvious. And Jess isn't stupid and realizes that he's the person that Mac's in love with, and her eyeballs are asking Mac what is going on. Jess says that they need to intubate him, but it's also misgendering him. We love it, don't we? Bryant comes in and tells Mac to move. I just gotta say, what does Mac actually do in this hospital? Doesn't seem like a lot. Mac wants to stay by his side and comfort him, but she knows she needs to leave. Jess asks if Paul is full code and asks for medical history, but Bryant sees Mac's Santa hat and then he's looking at her suspiciously. She says he's full code, give him everything. They get to work. She tells them he's an army vet with PTSD, but otherwise good health. I mean, he's allergic to everything, so I don't think he's doing amazing, but if you say so. Also the PTSD, but whatever. The PTSD isn't like, it's like besides that. It's like you don't get to say besides, it sucks. Try and live here, you'll see. Try to be in a PTSD body for like a day and you will see, okay, I promise. Bryant scoffs at the use of the correct pronouns. Jessica asks if they have another respiratory therapist for this patient, and a different nurse leaves to get someone to replace Bryant. And then Mac outs Paul to everyone. Despicable. She says that if Bryant has a problem with that, he should get out. And Dr. Anderson, the sexist, doesn't care about this, probably because he thinks it makes sense that women would want to be men. I don't agree with this weird logic, obviously, but I know his type specifically, okay? The ER tech gasps and Bryant's jaw hardens and tightens or whatever, but everyone keeps working. And Jessica removes Paul's binder from under a blanket to protect his dignity, and Mac thinks, thank God Jessica is here. Honestly, Jessica is the best character, so agreed. She's just standing in the doorway like a weirdo though, Mac is, and Dr. Anderson asks about if he has any allergies and she tells him about them and his EpiPen. He asks if Paul's allergic to any like medications, and she's not sure. Bryant yells at her to get out of the way so they can work on him with more misgendering. She thinks he's rude, but he's right. Yeah, kind of true. She thinks that Jessica will make sure he's taken care of. She decides to notify Paul's family and update them on his condition, and she'll call the vet hospital to get his records. I mean, you could have been doing that instead of crying, but whatever. She sees Jessica like grabbing a bunch of stuff from the medication cart, including Benadryl. You know, remember his worst allergy that she forgot about? She still hasn't left, and she's worried about the wheezing and the swelling. She knows that she's forgetting something, and Dr. Anderson asks for more Benadryl, and Mac gives it to him, and Bryant decides to ask Mac if she knows Paul, and she corrects him and says he's a man again. She says Nunya, and she thinks that he should focus on Paul's breathing, which I agree with. What do you think, doctor? Does the army Tiesler need to be tubed to breathe? He asks, looking directly at me and not Dr. Anderson. His name is Paul, I say in a rush, and Jessica grabs my suddenly raised fisted hand. Bryant snatches the chest binder forcibly from the table, launching it toward me with a fiery fury. Get out and find a different boyfriend to cheat on. See, I don't see why this was necessary, including like the slurs and stuff. I feel like it's to make one character seem awful, and I know that different phobias and isms exist and lots of people have them, but that doesn't mean I always want to read about it. And my other thing is like, you just kind of did this to make Paul, not Paul, well, I guess, yeah, Paul, you did this to make Paul look like the obvious choice and to make Bryant seem like he's worse. And honestly, Bryant was already worse because he doesn't respect anything she says. You didn't have to add all of this, but okay. Dr. Anderson steps between them and reminds them to do their damn jobs. He's using the correct pronouns, which is nice, I guess. He says that Paul seems to be improving. The new respiratory therapist is here. Jess tells Gina to take over for Bryant and that he's on break, so they switch. Mac is still holding the binder for some reason, and Bryant inches closer and continues to be transphobic, saying Paul is a unique name for a lady. She says Paul is the perfect name for him, and he says Paul's the cock blocker, huh? I expected a burly Alaskan man. Guess I misread you. See, he only cared about the sex, and this is one of the reasons why I think that waiting until marriage is a bad idea, personally. She says that he misread her completely, and then he says, a woman? Really? You're no lesbo? Keep lesbians out of your musty mouth, bitch. He says that they can laugh this off at home, and I can show you what being with a man is like. Gross, and it feels corrective, rapey, nasty. She says, it's not what you think, even though she thinks it kind of is. But she tells him that they're done, like she's already told him, and that she loves Paul and not him. He says, do tell, even better, show us pictures. She tells him to stop because they have a patient to take care of. Jess asks if they have gotten his chart from the VA, and I didn't think Mac had gone to do this, but apparently she did, and she's going to check to see if the fax machine has it yet. She goes to see, and it's there. And she sees the allergy to Benadryl, and she rushes into the room to tell them, and they clip the Benadryl IV shut. And Dr. Anderson says, good catch, he was starting to get worse again. She thanks God for small miracles, and the emergency is declared over. She looks at Paul and thinks, another snowy night with an emergency, and this time I saved you. Toot your own horn, why don't you? She's feeling a lot of emotions and starts crying again. Jess comes over and gently touches her arm and then dips. There goes the best character, except she also says quick that Matt can stay here and watch over him, and I'll let you know if you're needed, but you only have like 1 hour to your shift left anyway, and Paul will probably appreciate it. Paul is starting to wake up, and she takes his hand and kisses it, and she says, Merry Christmas, Paul. I think now might not be the time to use the word Merry, perhaps. Mayhaps. Anyhow, chapter 14, Mac. Mac says there's something I need to confess, something I realized but didn't tell you. I think you should go on a first date first. But she thinks God keeps bringing them together for a reason. Stop blaming an entity for all of your decisions. She's thinking he's in the clear, but her heart can't accept it. And she decides she's telling him how she feels and everyone else too. She says, I knew I was different and conventional relationships never quite fit. I had my life planned out and I thought I knew my path, but God's will is funny. It has a funny way of surprising me. I've fallen in love with you, Paul, and you're not at all part of my plan. Hey, and I just want to say that her using like unconventional and unorthodox repeatedly is really overused to the point where it feels like a microaggression at best. and like actual bigotry at worst, honestly. But then she's also like, I never imagined I'd feel this way for someone. Loving you is so natural and easy. I finally know why I can't fall in love with Bryant and why I couldn't sleep with him, because he wasn't the right person. I ended my engagement before I met you, but without properly explaining all of the reasons to him, yada yada. But she keeps going. She says Bryant doesn't really love her, and he loved being engaged to a doctor and the status symbol of it. But she says he wasn't a terrible person. Everything about him in the last couple of chapters says otherwise, bitch. Okay? He's a transphobic asshole and he's a misogynist. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But she says that there was a lot of pressure and that she was lying to herself. This confession keeps going on for a really long time, but I'm done recounting it because it's all stuff we already know, okay? She ends it by saying she loves him again. And Jess clears her throat behind her, and Mac apologizes for not being who Jess thought she was. Jess does not care who her partner is, and she didn't want to wear an ugly bridesmaid's dress anyway. Real. She just wants her to be happy. But Jess brings bad news. Bryant is talking to HR, looking all smug. Jess tells her that whatever happens, her and the rest of the staff have her back, and she deserves to be here just as much as any other doctor, and this Catholic hospital's old-fashioned morality clause is ridiculous. Jess is a real one until a couple chapters from now. I'm sorry to burst everyone's bubble. Chapter 15, Paul. Paul wakes up in the hospital, and he thinks at first he's in the hospital after his platoon's attack, but he pretty easily remembers he's not in the military, and he remembers the accident at the shop, and his head isn't that hurt though, and he just has a bandage on it. But then he remembers that Mac was here, but sitting there isn't Mac, it's Bryant. And Paul realizes it and remembers he's hostile as hell. How he remembers that, I don't know. Bryant nods at the flowers that are there, and Paul doesn't know who they're from, but Bryant says that they're Mac's favorite too. Paul thinks that Mac must have left them while he was still sleeping because she was either going back to work or she wasn't ready to out herself at work. He like wants to remember what she whispered, right? But he can't completely remember it. He asked Bryant if he's here to do a test or something, and Bryant says, you're breathing now, like just fine, thanks to me. But Army Paul knows that it's like a team effort, and his heart tells him to thank Mac. I think you should thank Gina and Dr. Anderson and Jess, but what do I know? Bryant says, don't get any ideas, Pauline. Mac is mine and she's going to marry me. She's not gay. When is this going to be over? Somebody end my suffering. He continues saying that her parents would turn over in her grave at you. They raised a good Catholic girl and she doesn't know what she wants and she needs someone to take care of her. Paul thinks that if this guy thinks he can claim Mac, like hell he can. She's a grown-ass woman, not property. He says Mac's choices are hers and she's more than capable of picking who she wants to be with. Bryant says, right, Dr. Mac makes great choices, like driving into a storm with no snow gear, like no snow tires, no snow chains. And she was obviously just asking me to spend the holiday with her, and she wanted me to chase her and save her. That's not a capable, intelligent woman, is it? And I don't see how she was with this man for a year and she didn't see any of this. I mean, I guess a year is not that long, but still. Paul asks what his problem is because he needs to go back to sleep because he's a patient. And Bryant says, you shouldn't have been there. I had everything under control. I would have saved her and you almost got her killed. Paul thinks, who does this guy think he is? He says Mac can handle herself. You can leave. He says, oh really, are you going to save her? You're a real lesbo in shining armor, I see. Only lesbians should be saying that, and the rest of you shouldn't be. Okay? Thank you. Paul says, you don't know a damn thing about either of us, and Bryant continues to misgender him and says, you're really messing up my plans. Then he starts poking around the room. Paul has his call button just in case. Bryant says, leave her alone. Her parents died and she's confused. She's nothing like you and she's my fiance. And he throws Paul's binder at him. Paul says, or what? Well, like in his brain, he's like, I'm a soldier and he couldn't even win even if I had no arms. And I love the confidence. Bryant then lies and says that Mac came back and begged me to marry her and says that they live together and she wants kids and she's Catholic, and if anyone finds out about her and Paul, she'll lose everything, and she's not destroying her career and her life for a freak. Paul then focuses on them living together, but he's confident in Mac, and he calls Bryant a lying piece of shit, but he also thinks his dream of Mac was too good to be true. You know what I mean? Bryant challenges this and says, am I a liar? Am I? Think about it. Do you really think she would choose a broken lesbo soldier over me? If these authors aren't lesbians, which I couldn't find any info by the way, I'm going to sue all of them for all of these slurs flying around and keeping lesbian's name in your damn mouth in a book that has 0 lesbians, by the way. Fuck you. Paul says that he's a lying shit again, and Paul says Mac and I share something special. Hi, it's Editing Shelby. I am back from Florida. I did it. I saw the dinosaurs. It was great. It was amazing. Except for the downpouring, but we were already wet from a water ride, so it was fine. The last like 10-ish minutes, which wasn't edited, got corrupted somehow. So I have to just re-record this part. I'm not gonna look cute. Deal with it. Planes are awful for me, just so you know. Paul says Mac and I have something special, something that she never had with you. Bryant gets pissed about this, and he asks if Paul slept with her. Paul doesn't answer, which is obviously an answer in and of itself. Bryant says you don't know her, she needs stability. Paul says she might not pick me, but she's definitely not gonna pick you, especially since you're an asshole. Bryant says you have no idea what I went through with her, how much she owes me. I put in the time, and I put up with her backward good Catholic girl behavior and beliefs. Again, he just wants to smash. Paul says again that she can make her own choices, and he says trying to force her and saying she owes him isn't love, bro. The door swings open and it's Jess. Jess asks if everything is all right and also asks what Bryant is doing. He says, I'm just having a conversation. She says, you can't be here because another respiratory therapist is assigned to him. She says that she understands the situation and he needs to get out now. Bryant says she doesn't know anything. Jess gets between him and Paul, and she says, what I do know is that you're a little weasel who's trying to fight with someone who's in a hospital bed, and you're trying to get my friend fired, and you want to manipulate her into marrying you. You're pathetic, and I'm sorry I introduced you guys, and I'm gonna call a code if you aren't gone in 1 second. And she moves her hand to the giant red button. He says, I'm the one who got dumped, so don't treat me like I'm the asshole. But he's retreating. She grabs his arm and shoves him out of the room anyway, and she says, good decision, you don't want to lose your job. Paul realizes that Jess is Mac's friend. It was pretty obvious, and he realizes that Mac isn't marrying Bryant. Paul asks where Mac is, and he's worried that she's going to lose her job. Jess says she's all right and you're fine too. She stayed the night and she's just showering for her shift. Jess also says that she's sorry that she left him. She didn't think that Bryant would bother him. Paul says no prob. Jess tells him he has visitors and it's his parents and they come on in. His mom asks if he punched that guy and Paul says no, just making friends. Jess tells them that Dr. Anderson said that he will be discharged this afternoon and your parents can drive you home. He says thanks and he wonders if he can see Mac before he leaves. Chapter 16, Mac. Jess asks if she has talked to Paul yet. She's been asking every hour. Mac says she will, but that he was sleeping. And Jess asks about Bryant and asks if she saw what was in the back of Bryant's truck. Mac says that she's done with him and she's moving today, even if it means giving him the house, which I wasn't 100% sure if he's actually on the mortgage or no, but okay. Jess says, good, you can stay with me. And she tells him that Mac has her snow chains in his truck. She says, I'm sure he's going to just like apologize and give them to you. And that he's a transphobic jerk, but he's Catholic. I mean, is he? We just heard him complain about her prudish Catholic beliefs or whatever. Also, Jess becomes my least favorite character by saying that they've been together for a long time and you should give him another chance. And she asks if Mac is sure about Paul. But from some weird mental gymnastics, Mac realizes that he didn't buy her new snow chains. He had stolen the old ones from her before she had left for the cabin. Hot damn, but we also knew that based on the entire fight with Paul. I know it's important that she learns it too, but we're just you know, like it's like we're having a lot of info repeated in a not very interesting way. He comes up to her, Bryant, and says he's sorry for what he said to Pauline, still being transphobic as hell. But Mac shoots out of her chair and Jess isn't sure what's going on, but she decides to do it too. Mac says, how could you? You hate that Paul rescued me because you orchestrated a whole situation where I almost died. He then victim blames her and says, I would have come if you called. It's your fault. Why didn't you call and ask like a normal human being? Why did you want to go to the cabin anyway when you should have been choosing me? She goes over that they're not together together anymore. And she says that he could have killed her. He says, spare me the sob story, Mac. You need someone to take care of you and hold your hand, or you make stupid choices like driving in a blizzard, or hooking up with a freak just to make me jealous. She says, I didn't choose you because I choose the freak and I'm different too, which you would realize if you got to know me instead of using me as arm candy. And Paul isn't a freak, even though she just called him a freak. He's a hero who served our country and saved my life. I'm tired of your toxic attitude. I don't love you and I'm queer. So hey, we have very little evidence that she actually likes women. You can be with trans men and be straight.
Who are you talking to right now?
He says you're blinded by your emotions and delusions. You have a weakness for broken people. And I'm the best person in your life. You're going to regret this. She says, I already am. We are done and I have been done with you for a long time. I choose Paul and I won't stand by while you belittle him or me. I'm like, well, you have a little bit instead, whatever. Bryant says, you man-hating bitch, you need. And he is interrupted by Jessica. She says that Mac deserves respect and you aren't the person I thought you were. I mean, you were kind of okay with the transphobia though. You just kind of brushed it off like a side note. You were like, you're a great guy, except for the transphobia when that wasn't true. No one is standing by him, including people in the crowd. And the CEO and CFO and Mac's like godmother or something show up and ask if there's a problem. He says no, just a small personal disagreement. Mac is asked for her opinion. She explains how disrespectful he's been to her and Paul, and management asks if he has anything to add. He says that this was just a misunderstanding, there was no harm intended. They say that this is more than a misunderstanding because you went to HR and because you emailed every management member, which was a big mistake. But Mac is still worried about Marianne, who's like her godmother or whatever, who's talking, because she doesn't want to face her disappointment. Has she been mentioned much in this story? No, not really. But Marianne says that they don't fire people based on sexual orientation or past relationships with patients. And she says they take privacy and workplace harassment seriously. And he nods, but he's pissed off. Marianne apologizes to Mac for having to deal with it. And she tells her that she stands by her. Bryant says that seems a little unfair. But Marianne cuts him off and tells Mac they want to promote her because she's so respectful and compassionate. They want her to lead a committee to promote inclusivity and equality. This hospital doesn't even want to give abortions. What are we talking about right now? Max says she's honored and she's like surprised a little bit. And then Marianne announces that they're firing Bryant in front of everyone because she's a bad bitch like that. He says, you can't fire me. She says patient confidentiality is non-negotiable and he's creating a toxic work environment and that HR is waiting for you. And so he just storms off. Everyone else disperses. Marianne asks if she'll be seeing Mac for dinner tomorrow. And she says, your mom would be so proud of you no matter what. And this makes Mac cry a little. And she's relieved that she's not losing her job. Then she sees Paul and his parents. Just says, sorry, I gotta go get those discharge papers. And Mac wonders how much they actually heard. Chapter 17, Paul. Paul is trying to leave the hospital and his dad is apologizing for him not like catching him as he fell. And he hears that whole thing with Bryant and she's so brave. His mom is smiling about this. I bet they're excited he just has someone now. His parents tell her not to let her slip away again. And Mac rushes over and introduces herself to his parents. We finally learn their names. It's Sandy and Ben. Our parents people outside of their children? Do they exist? No, obviously gone. And they thank her for making Paul so happy. Paul says that he's glad to see her. She thanks them for their kind words and she apologizing for them having to witness that inappropriate scene. Paul's mom says that they're really sorry about her parents dying. And it turns out that Paul's dad, who's, you know, the friend with the medallion or whatever, was Mac's dad. Crazy town. I mean, it's small town Alaska. How many people can there be? And they show her the medallion and she tells him about her medallion and how she went to the cabin to find it and Paul's dad had given it to her dad. There is more crying. Mac asks Paul if she can really keep the medal and he says, of course, it was your father's. And then she puts the one she had on Paul, so it's like an old reverse switcheroo. Paul wants Mac's number so he can take her out on a proper date. Finally! Jess is back though and says you have to do paperwork first so that you're not a patient anymore because that's a problem around these parts. Mac laughs about it. Mac ends up giving him her number at after the paperwork. Mac is looking forward to calling Paul and going on that date, and Paul's parents hug Mac together for some reason, and his parents are like, we're going to warm up the car. Mac wants to set up an Elvis sandwich date. I hate it. Thanks so much. The banter is dumb. I'm not reading that to y'all. You don't deserve that torture. Paul thinks that there's an unthawing around the icy layers of my heart. Did I rescue her or did she save me? It's like dog adoptions when they're like, who rescued who? Sesame's from a breeder. You didn't rescue me from shit. Epilogue, Mac hands Paul an envelope. They moved into the cabin last year. She's working a lot and she sees people for PTSD and she's still in that like equality position or whatever. In the envelope is his new driver's license with an updated name, picture, and gender. And she says, it's official, I'm marrying Paul next year. Poor Paul, stuck with that. Oh. It's been 17 months since the main story. Everything has been great. I won't bore you. They do see some moose. I am jealous. I've never seen a moose. A girl who has lived in New Hampshire pretty much my entire life. But I haven't seen a moose. That's a travesty. They can't imagine life without each other. Blah, blah, blah. The end. Also near the end, it says it was a sapphic romance. Again, it wasn't. Hope this helps. And there's a recipe for the Elvis sandwich. And no thank you. Conclusion. I don't like this book. There was just so much I didn't enjoy. I hate Insta-love. I hate that authors don't seem to know that much about trans people but insist on writing about them. And this was just not for me at all, and I was glad I was done. I rated this book 2 out of 5. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a snowmobile emoji if you made it this far, or like a snowflake. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you have a great weekend. Collateral Damage should be coming out really soon. I finished filming. I just have to edit. And I will see you for either Collateral Damage or the next holiday romance. Bye!